morning, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my new friend, Devi Grace. Hi, Devi.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Wonderful.
So everyone, I'm excited to learn. I think I'm going to have my notepad out today to learn from Devi because she's an ancestral healer, an Akashic Intuitive, which I use the Akashic Records too, Archetypal Oracle, Master Facilitator, Kundalini Yoga Instructor, and a global alchemist. So we're in for a treat to learn whatever gems of wisdom we get today from Devi. So I want everyone to understand about your soul mission, I guess I would say. Would you say that's the right word? Your divine purpose?
Well, as synchronicity would have it, because you live there in Boulder, and we're both fans of David and Leela Tresimmer's, right, mission through Starhouse. My life purpose is very much connected, right, to their commitment as well through the path of the Sophianic lineages, or the Sophia, which is the Great Mother, and that sanctuary in the Rocky Mountains, they highlight the balance between the cooperation with the conscious feminine and the conscious masculine, as it is practiced thousands and thousands of years ago, known as the sacred alchemical marriage, also called the hieros gamos. So basically, it's the balance of power between the god and the goddess, right? The Great Mother, the Great Father. And so that's going to heal the entire human family tree of life. And so it's November 3rd. We just had 3 days of All Hallows Eve, Samhain, Dia de los Muertos, All Saints Day, Festival of the Ancestors, right? When the veils are the thinnest between the worlds. So my commission is just the continuation of these ancient technologies, ancient practices for modern times, because we're really graduating them into that direct soul embodiment of an authentic quantum unified field, which has to have both the awakened masculine principle and the awakened feminine principle coming together in that new sacred geometry. We call it a triwave, right? We're moving out of the Vesica Pisces, those 2 spheres, and we're moving into the Trinity, right? Or the Triveca that you see over in Celtic symbology, where you have the mother and the father, and then you have that alchemy or that union or that synthesis that they create in that state of wholeness. So basically everything I represent is multidimensional wholeness. And then the star ancestors, right? They're the ancient ones to the human ancestors. So it proves that we're all connected, whether you're African descent or Chinese or, Russian. This seeding of cosmic consciousness or cosmic ancestry is what unites the one human family.
So I watched a bunch of your videos so that I could get an idea of you. And I'm so impressed with all the different, what's the right word? It's like you're a content curator. Your studies have put everything together so that you're putting the puzzle pieces together and doing it for us, so we don't have to read 100 books, take 100 courses. You've done it. And what's I've been doing similar work for the past year, especially since the shutdown. It seemed like, okay, showtime, gotta hold. This is the time we came here for, was the turning of the consciousness into a balance, in an equitable balance, and into love. And what I wanted to do was hold more light. So that's and we're all calling our parts home into the vessel so that we can be divine humans here, because this isn't the time to be frozen. Do you know what I'm saying? I think that a lot of
very much,
are so
right?
frozen with the choices, right? So
Yes.
how do you see the change? I mean, do you see we've got 10 years, 30 years? I mean, we're going into the age of Aquarius. We're going from this polarity environment into love and peace and harmony. And we got to fix this, right? This fractal of the whole has to do its part, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. The other synchronicity between us, right, is that we both love Sharon Rose, who
Yes.
launched, quantum chi.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's through this integration of all that we are. Now, archetypally, Sharon and I just go off on, right, the communion between the high priest and the high priestess within us,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so when we talk about calling back all of those divine pieces and parts so that they can aggregate back into our cellular structures, that's ancient Asian medicine.
Right.
We're just bringing back, right, everything that the Taoists also modeled for the human race. So none of this is actually new. What's on the leading edge of human evolution is our faith and our willingness to actually believe we're capable of retrieving all of those, what you would call soul aspects, and that this is it. This is the timeline, right? Where we basically have this massive dispensation of grace. So the Sophia built in this cosmic insurance policy called the Arc of Grace, which represents the law of grace. And so really we're seeing this transfiguration or transmutation or dissolving of the karmic imprints that created this veil between spirit and matter.
Perfect.
Because those that are trained in the high priestess or high priest lineages, regardless of, whatever mystery school you aligned yourself with, they all say the same thing. We've got to merge, right? Our essence and our form. We've got to merge our embodied light quotient, right? How much velocity and volume of light can you carry in your body? So it's very much that pranic chi flow, life force. And in the Sophionic mystery schools, that's the goddess, right? Swimming through our cell structures like a river of love. So it's love made real.
Perfect.
And what people don't realize is, particularly in their subconscious and unconscious body mind, they have conflict going on between their masculine and feminine poles because it's so ancient that they inherited, right, from their family line. So we've got to heal the body lines to heal the family line.
That makes sense.
And that's like a eureka or an epiphany of like, what do you mean I have male female conflict in my ancient genealogy that I don't know about that's affecting my work or my relationship with money or leadership or romance, right? Or in the bedroom, as we say, right? The tantric issues. So I've actually counseled a lot of couples, and there's this sigh of relief, and they're like, oh, it's not about us. We're purifying, right?
Right.
And then there's this level of like compassion of like, oh, we're releasing inherited patterning, right, from ages ago, and we're the lucky ones. And on our love union, we get to cleanse, right, and empty out or zero point those old echoes. And then we can come into that legendary love or that evolutionary love. So my favorite avenue of support is through couples and organizations. And then organizations get to see their organizational blueprint, and it just keeps iterating, right? In these composite shared realizations or collective awakening patterns, which is yummy stuff.
So much of this is so true. I've been a consultant for most of my adult life, and most companies are families.
Yes.
They have a lot of family dynamics, and somehow we find our way to be that. That's kind of an instinctual thing that, oh, I'll play the daughter or the sister or the aunt. And I know that you did family constellation work. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I've studied it this much. I've never really gone deep into it, but I think it's fascinating work.
Oh, it's amazing. Kudos, right, to Bert Hellinger, who brought back the technology from Africa, which was Zulu shamanism. I had the honor and privilege to study with Vlado Ilic, who's the only certified parallel family systemic constellations facilitator on the whole planet. And he is a descent of Serbian, right, medicine women. So his grandmother, right, was the medicine woman. And so he would see the quantum parallels of, well, the issue in this family system is also the same issue in that family system, which is also the same issue in that family system. And he saw, I can't resolve what's actually at the foundational tap root, right, of this common theme if I don't get all three family systems out on the floor at the same time.
Wow.
Because if we look at our ancestries going back thousands and thousands of years, we've all incarnated in these clusters of the soul group. And so, part of the soul group's over here, and part of the soul group's over here, and part of the soul group's over here. So if you had a fracture, right, or a major trauma, which is usually through pretty significant scales of conflict, right, warfare, and the breakdown of the family system through that kind of, national and international violence, then I kid you not, you have people flying in from all over the planet, all these different ethnicities, all these different quadrants of, the blue jewel, Gaia, as I call her. And we had this agreement, this soul contract, right, to release what the primary fracture was eons ago. And we were all reunited, right, in those aspects of the archetypal representation. And the way that the miracle happens is that consciousness basically identifies an aspect that is required to set the whole, right, contraction free. So maybe bravery is the missing element, or maybe humility was the missing element, or maybe respect was the missing element. So I kid you not, I basically saw everything that is in the near-death experience studies about the end-of-life review showing up in the family systemic parallel constellations, because what the missing ingredient was these noble virtues.
Beautiful.
Did you have enough compassion? Did you have enough forgiveness? Did you have enough bravery? It was attributes of consciousness, not an action. The whole energy field needed grace, or the whole energy field needed valor, or like a love that is courageous, right? Courageous love, not just loving things as we would like them to be, loving things because we have enough humility to surrender to the divine mystery.
Right. Well, there's so many things you just said. Okay, so one of them is surrender and trust. So the work that you do, okay, the first thing I want to say is that it's obvious that you've done a lot of work because you can see the patterns, which means that you're not swimming in 3D. You're looking at it from an elevated perspective, an eagle's view, if you want to say, bird's eye view, where you can look at, okay, let's see how to play this game better. Because this is a game. We forgot.
Yeah.
We forgot, and we're taking everything so seriously. I mean, I can't tell you how many times a day I just burst out laughing. It's a cosmic comedy. It is. It's going on. Okay. But how do you help people surrender enough and trust? Because you can see the pattern. You can see the path to releasing the suffering, basically, because that's what we're causing, is our own shame and blame causes this suffering, and we're projecting it to outside of ourselves, because of course it's not ours, it's their fault. So how do you get people to stop and pause and surrender the ego? How do you get the ego to calm down, basically, so that the healing can occur?
That's a delicious, right, invitation. So through the temples of the Divine Mother, there must be enough relaxation in our system before we can feel safe, before we can let go, before we can trust, and then before we can surrender. So I have been endowed with what you would call trans-dimensional, interdimensional, multidimensional gifts to penetrate that darkness, to penetrate that shadow program and get it to drop its armor. So if there's a sacred wound, right, the body creates a protective shield.
Right.
And it doesn't even know that it's carrying armor. And so the heart's like, I'm ready to choose love. And the body's like, protect yourself, instinctual survival zone. So it's the touch, right, of that miracle where I basically am a surrogate for the Divine Mother and the Divine Father. And people kind of feel like, oh, you're representing the heavenly parents on earth. And I'm like, yeah, your Divine Mother, your Divine Father's here. And the human family has been through so much for so many centuries, so many eons. It's nobody's fault. And we've just got to clean this up. And so the light or the energy or the frequency and the vibration of the Divine Mother and the Divine Father is that unconditional love. Mm-hmm. And people can get on a very intuitive level that I can see their soul. So through the principle of being a shamanic witness, I see you, right? Remember in Avatar, I see you. They're like, oh, you see my soul. You know who I really am without my patterns. And that creates the safety to let me in. And once they, right, intuitively let me in, then that river of life force can start traveling through those very fractured places and the love glue. So I got called the love glue.
I love you. Oops. You also had mentioned about the near-death experience, and I've been a volunteer for IONS for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
I'm very active, and not on the board, but as a volunteer. And in fact, we just had an incredible conference in Salt Lake City, and we're already working on next year's.
Yes.
What you mentioned is that you had near-death experiences, and I haven't had a near-death experience. I've had spiritually transformative experiences, which means that you don't have to die, but you get to Thank you. It was very nice of them to not have to make me go through that. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because in my study and experience and being involved in this for 5 years pretty heavily, I mean, I've read, 20, 30, 40 books. One of the common denominators is that there is no judgment day. You judge you. And
yes.
So do you want to talk a little bit about your near-death experience? Do you mind doing that? Is that okay?
I'd be happy to, because I write about it in the Ancestors Within series, Volume 2, Chapter 19, What's Possible. And then I also write about it in We the Experiencers book trilogy with Sheila Seppi and the Galactic Alliance. And what I was introduced to in both of my journeys across the veil and back is I got to physically sit on the ancestral councils, the ancient of ancients, right, who have been observing the situation down here on the planet and kind of really researching from their perspective, how can we help our descendants recover from what has transpired, the patterns of separation? How are we going to assist that species to evolve out of separation consciousness and into unity consciousness? And so I'm with thousands, right, of ancient ones, ancestral councils from cultures and civilizations all over the planet. And they're all like, well, kid, we need you to go back and heal the rift between the masculine and feminine, right? Frequencies, because that's the nucleus of the family unit. So when we had our first breakdown in the family unit, right, that first family trauma thousands and thousands of years ago, that fracture, right, created what they would call soul splits. And so the human being isn't aware that they have a subconscious disassociation, right, from their authentic soul energy. And then this is where those artificial or less than evolved, right, personality constructs or identity constructs develop. And then people get into a pattern of wearing a veil. And they forget that they actually have a choice point. The most important choice point is where you are presented with a karmic pattern, whether it's personal or ancestral or archetypal. There's 3 levels in any given moment. And it's like, what are they going to choose? Right? Are they going to choose love? And so they're invested in assisting us at those destiny path choice points where we're presented with a situation that's full of fear or ignorance, right? Or some kind of a forgetting because there's a lack of connection, right? Or respect to the highest truth. And those are the moments that they're like, you can do it. You can do it. You can call upon your highest self, right? Have enough humility to say a prayer in that moment, right? Highest self, please show me the path of grace or the path of, reconciliation with this aspect of myself so I can create a turning point experience with this reflection in the mirror.
Perfect.
And that is a shamanic skill set or a soul intelligence ability. And so they have been asking all of these different cooperative systems of wisdom to partner so that people can get the tools, the skill sets, right, and the activations of their dormant gifts. A lot of us have experienced massive amounts of spiritual persecution across multiple timelines.
Yeah.
And so if you got killed for your amazing gifts, right, it's not necessarily going to be like an exciting, thrilling possibility to you to bring those gifts back because there's still the trepidation. Like, well, if I bring that, amazing ability back, am I going to get deleted or nixed, right? Or, burnt at the stake yet again.
Yeah, there's a bunch of
ignorance. Yeah. Or, old human systems just being in resistance, right, to these incredible blessings from our perspective.
Well, it's also the flow of energy is that when you have all of these obscurations in your field, you aren't able to hold and keep the flow because there's an everlasting, undeniable flow of energy coming in this field. And most people are cut off from it, or they do clear their chakras and they have it for a little while and they kind of forget, and then they get depleted, right?
Yeah, it's the equivalent in electricity of a short circuit, right? And so they're running lots of short circuits, and we've actually evolved beyond the chakra system into these lattices of light that's so interconnected, it creates exquisite patterns, right, of new weaves between all of the meridians, between all of the nadis, right, through all of the like ley lines of our bodies or circuits. So it's very much a circuitry alignment so that you can reanimate all those pathways that got damaged, right? Or shut down or walled off. And then we have, interference from inorganic technologies attempting to dumb down the human race. So
yes.
We have the removal, right, of what you would call junk. And all that is passed down in the limbic birth imprint in the womb space.
Right. Wow.
And so it's the purification of the entry templates or, what did you come in with that is really a carryover from generations past in your anatomy and physiology. Physically, we see them as seals, right? And it's kind of like a blocked dam. And until those seals, right, open sesame, right, saying the magic word, those pathways won't run the waters of the life force again. So not only is it repairing circuits, it's also opening up circuits that have been slammed shut because there's just too much trauma. And so the purification of like literally just dumping tons of, I call it liquid light, into your body, and the internal repair systems, right? Your 444,000 and more allies in the transcendent realms that are like, how much can you, it's not going to be in English, right? Because sometimes I speak different languages and then I'll translate it. To vartiarno maiske, judidicia data, veto pakor korski, zudibakdura data khriana manana. So how much can you let us, which is you, your highest self you, assist you in the human to repair what has been temporarily shut down? Because it was never meant to be a permanent, right? Schism. If there's a fracture, then we have that experience of forgetting or an amnesia, right? The sacred wound. And then we go on the hero and the heroine's journey of overcoming that obstacle and evolving our consciousness, which you will see in those end of life inquiries, right? Mm-hmm. Of how did you respond to that situation that seemed like it was very unworkable, and how did you open up pathways of creativity and innovation inside of yourself and also inside of your environment, one and the same, right? Shift the matrix of light within your own body, shift the matrix of light within the situation so that you could persevere or rise like a phoenix. So they're looking for us to claim that metamorphosis principle of the butterfly, where we just melt down, caterpillar, what's not working, and reconfigure us in that receptivity to that divine guidance system that our highest self is partnering with our human psyche so that we can be those path cutters or the pathfinder that maybe no generation before us has ever been able to navigate, which is pretty incredible.
So, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to put us both on. You and I, before we came on, we were talking about ancestral work, and I'd love for you to explain the importance of that, because I don't think that people understand the opportunity to clean up 32 generations or more.
Right.
I mean, when we do the work, we're doing it forward and backward in time because there is only the present now. So, but I think people might be more courageous about doing the work and getting out of their pain and suffering if they realize the quantum aspect of it. Could you speak to that?
Yes, I'd be happy to highlight something that was shared with me by many of the First Nations indigenous grandmothers in this continent. They called it 7777 ancestral path cutting. And that includes the traditional 7 generations back, 7 generations forward. Because we are in quantum consciousness, it's also 7, right, timelines parallel, mm-hmm. and also 7 octaves, 7 by the power of 7. People have no logical idea how much powerful capacity we carry to transform systemic issues that have been pervasively, right, echoing or bleeding through, right, multiple storylines. Most people are familiar with clearing their own Akashic records. That's your personal purification space. And it's like, well, once you finish that, you graduate from those old karmic patterns within your own book of life. Then you get to step up into purifying in the ancestral space. And what that allows us to see is that we are these magnificent change agents, to have like a pebble in the pond and this quantum ripple effect of like, if I unearth a greater availability to embody more of my own love, more of my own self-respect in the atoms and the molecules and the tissues and the organs, right, of my own vehicle, then that has the capacity to then ripple out and affect the entire village, right, of all these extended relations that have been struggling, right, with that barricade of fear for thousands and thousands of years. It just takes one significant breakthrough to like forge, right, or cut the laser, right, through the door, create the divine door, and then the pathway, the golden path, is then traversable for all of those energy streams. So as soon as a portal is created, which is an opening of love, then all that energy that's been backlogged, right? It's like, oh, that's how you reconnect with the purity of source. Because the whole point is to get back your channels of your purity of your source connection, because the source connection is what allows us to carry the frequency, right? Or the animation of love. And that severing, right, when the source connection is temporarily severed, then that's what creates all the fear and the contraction and the forgetting of infinite possibility. So it's like in business, you call it enhancing your upline, right? Or enhancing your, Wi-Fi signals so that you have divine broadband, right, access. So the human divine has all of these source creation access channels. We call it a vertical alignment. Ancestral healing is not horizontal. Ancestral healing is vertical. You reactivate the purity of your source connection. And then all the other horizontal issues, right, that have been struggling because they felt cut off from that source light can then see that love is here now.
Oh, beautiful. Can you share any examples or stories of people that you've done this work with that was highly transformative and beneficial, and you could witness it?
Yes, I'd be happy to, ground it now. Practical examples.
Okay.
Well, I have facilitated up at Star House, right? Intermarriage ceremonies where people have married themselves, not just an external partner. And the number one solution that we've found is that if there's a breakdown in the marriage, in the family system, right, there was a conflict between a mother and a father, then those energy fields went into distrust, right, in the pain body. And so we created a sacred marriage ceremony for a descendant that was healing something that went back 152 generations.
Wow.
And we basically said that this is your birthright. You were supposed to come in knowing that the divine marriage, the mystical marriage, we call it Unio Mystica up at Star House, right? And so for the Mary Magdalene lineage, right, the Order of Isis lineage, I brought in the Sophia and the monad of God and married one of my associates to themselves. And they were, a big time author and facilitator of many transformational healing technologies themselves. And yet they hadn't repaired, right, that internal wedding space of the holy hierogamic consummation of 100% unconditional self-acceptance.
Beautiful.
And when they gave themselves not just love and acceptance, then it created the grace glue, right, for the restoration of the split that had been, right, echoing 152 generations of some form of just reoccurring pain body between couples, right, where they would have the best of intentions, right, on their wedding altar day, and yet there was this, undermining current of the belief that it's never going to work out. Love didn't have a future in that family line. So everybody would get married and then there'd be some kind of a breakdown, right? The marriage wouldn't last because that was an assumption that, yeah, you come together. However, there was always some form of interference that split up the beloveds. And so we had to truncate, right, that resignation of the tragedy, the Shakespearean tragedy of Romeo and Juliet. There wasn't the faith that love, right, sustains, or love has the capacity to evolve, that the partners can grow together, whatever the story is. And so there was this belief that, love itself was being targeted on the planet, right, by shadow forces. And we have seen this where the sacred marriage previously has been attacked. If you've done your historical studies, right? Kathleen McGowan wrote about it in The Expected One, The Book of Love, The Poet Prince. There's been a lot of warfare, right, against the beloveds. And so there's a lot of purification of the religious wars, right, that targeted couples.
Right.
And that's why Saint Valentinus, a Gnostic mystic, right, was executed. Not fun stuff. So I'm not being cheeky to be disrespectful. It's just to bring levity to, yeah, it's been rough, and a lot of times lovers were executed because the old world, right, distortions of power, were scared. And so if love is that powerful, sacred union love in particular, right, and we realize that there's been a tremendous previous spiritual persecution, well, the solution is to bring back the royal marriage, which is the archetypal, like Isis and Osiris in us all, right? Because Isis is older than the Mary Magdalene archetype. And so we just follow it in the lineage of the great goddess and her consort, the king and queen of heaven, made consummate as beloveds with Gaia, right? And the green man here on the earth as well.
That's beautiful. So do you do a lot of that, the integration? What it's integration work, really, your divine masculine, divine feminine. Do you do a lot of that work?
Yes, I'm a shamanic wedding facilitator.
I love that.
It's the restoration of wholeness, right? And some of them will physically put a wedding ring on their finger, like, I'm married to my soul.
Beautiful.
Before I partner with you, right, in my external relationship, I'm coming home to a state of absolute bond of affection with my own eternal spirit, and my body and my spirit are coming into this royal wedding ceremony, and the reaffirmation of the vows of, these are my highest core values for my life's design, because our soul has a blueprint. Our soul has that personal set of instructions. So people kind of marry their destiny with me. It's like I have this dharma that I am married to, and then that's how I'm going to attract my appropriate mate, because I have this vertical marriage, right? Or this vertical partnership with source, with my I am self. And then, since I know me, all of me, in that space of quantum self-acceptance, and then I can offer that,
Beautiful.
right, graciousness to another. And then we realize we're being partnered on behalf of a much bigger picture, and the exponential evolutionary love that these quote unquote sacred union power couples represent.
Right. Yeah.
That
Wow.
we have a combined legacy. We have a combined legacy to co-steward together.
That's so beautiful. And I think this is the return of the divine feminine. We've been at a balance where we've been in this patriarchal model, which is, again, part of this whole change of going to the Aquarian age, where we go to, instead of the teeter-totter, where divine masculine can be powerful and vicious, and so can divine feminine. We're not trying to pull that back in. We're trying to go to 0 point.
Center.
Center, exactly. So, and do you feel that that's, are you seeing that that there's a big desire with the people that you're talking to bring that into every aspect of their existence?
It's a heralding, right?
Yes.
On like I always go back to royal metaphors. The heralding of the return of the convocation of the divine masculine and the convocation of the divine feminine. It takes tremendous strength to call back that ancient remembrance of what we used to have, right? And what are named the golden ages. And so this is not a new concept for the species to see this in its heightened optimal expression. There is the way that the divine feminine principle can elicit and call forth the divine masculine. There's a specific way that the divine masculine can then beckon, right, and entice the divine feminine out. It's almost like sometimes those aspects of us go into the grab show, right? And if we're with a partner that truly sees that ancient side of ourselves where we already remember all this and invites it to come back in that safe space of encouragement and recognition, I call it pure soul recognition. Can you give yourself pure soul recognition? And can we give each other? And so people have just wept in my arms and they're like, oh, you knew I had it in me all along. And I'm like, yes. And we're returning to that original impeccability and integrity with the truth of what our fullest expression is. So it's a remembering and the support that's made available to reclaim those ancient roots, where people realize, oh, I don't have to, attend a million trainings and seminars and workshops because I've already cultivated this incredible, phenomenal consciousness across infinite timelines. So there's a simplicity in the soul retrieval.
Beautiful.
I don't have to go to that academy, right, and pay $29,000 to remind myself of what I already know. Let's just call back, right? Those timelines or those facets where I already studied all this, already mastered all this, and I just put it down in the basement. So that soul excavation, right? It's not just a soul retrieval. It's also bringing up those files that we put down in the basement. Like, that's me. I already know all this. And people weep and they're like, I remember. I know now what I already know. So Gnosticism, it's the knowing. Reclaim your knowing.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think that the opportunity is now to do this work because, number one, you can be present in the moment.
Yeah.
Because right now, the chaos, if you're sensitive at all, which a lot of the people that watch this show are conscious leaders, they're conscious business people that are servant leaders, and they're taking care of their employees as well as their customers, and they need tools to take care of themselves. And when they can be present and powerful, bring in the energy from source and work through their heart rather than just this
head.
That's part of it also, is that what you're talking about is this opening of your heart space that's palpable. It's maybe hard to articulate, but it's palpable.
Yes, thank you for going there. There are organizational family constellations, right, for business leaders. And one of the sacred economics or sacred commerce principles that we teach through the merchant priesthood and the merchant priestesshood is that the leadership in an organization is setting the tone of what's possible. And particularly if we look at money trauma in previous lifetimes or previous generations where the family system was attacked for having wealth, a lot of times business owners will have this hidden set point, right? They'll be successful to a certain point.
Yeah.
And then the whole organization doesn't dare go past that, unspoken agreement to don't go too big, don't go too successful. And the irony of it is that their consciousness is attempting to protect them, right, from what you would call an attack from a foreign invader, right, if they got too big. And so it's amazing when you see people release what you would call their ancient ancestral money trauma, where there was, like, say, for instance, the Nazis came in and stole all of the family assets and killed all of the family members. And then, it's a death sentence. And so that's not fun, right? So being able to trust that we're safe in the sacred marketplace of conscious wealth, that's a whole other, right? Sacred marriage, and the marriage of money and love, and the marriage of love and power. Right? And the marriage of love and grace, because that's what brings the miracles. So there's corporate shamanism.
I love it. I love it because I think this is what the opportunity is now, is to find resources where you you call back in your fragments and you clear the spaces. You release the things that are in the space where you can call back those fragments, which is, I'm calling obscurations from the Saint Germain work.
Yes.
But the thing that there is a question from somebody, and I don't know who it is. I'm apologizing. They didn't click into StreamYard. Sliding in late. Curious, the labels of divine feminine and divine masculine fall away when we recognize our fullest expression.
Yes. So archetypally, right, she mentioned the purification of obscurations. Germain has a divine feminine counterpart as Portia.
Yes.
And so there's the recognition of both Portia and Germain. You got to anchor those twins, right? They're called I call them twin coatomics. And in quantum physics, right, you get those two scalar waves dialed in, and then they turn into harmonics. So what you're describing is the foundation of the two scalar waves. As those two scalar waves go into quantum resonance, then you have those harmonics, and then it is in that original state of wholeness. Most people, though, can't just access wholeness out of the blue, right? So we give them the two pillars, right? Like a door has a right side and a left side to open up the doorway, right? To open up the arch. It's kind of like a Stargate. Like bring in the two, right? Get those twin scalar waves flowing, and then it comes into coherence, which comes into resonance, which comes into harmonic oscillations and octaves. And then, yes, we talked about the tri-wave, and that tri-wave will then spiral into the eternal life lotus, and that'll take you straight back to origins or the ongoing moment of creation. Some people have to go back through the void, right? So as they reclaim all of their divine masculine and divine feminine soul fragments, then they can completely surrender into the shunyata, void point, right? Grace point, grail point, and then they're just in primordial isness, and then they're just weeping tears of gratitude for the wholeness of infinite existence. And that's when we get into a state of awe. And that's when awe and reverence. And I have said in the void space, I am humble before primordial power. I've bowed because I've experienced the magnitude of that power of unification that is the all-consuming, all-inclusive, eternal fabric of all that is. I mean, yeah, those are huge, very magnificent, right? States of purity of being, for sure. Thank you for asking.
Beautiful explanation. And I want people to understand it sounds disorienting, but instead it is not. It is the highest opportunity to be fully human, because we are ascending in body this time.
Yeah.
And so you
Hey,
are
a logical ascension. People go like, what?
so the idea, I wanted your fans are here. I want to show some of it. And Holly Webb says, this is the love that we have been praying for in order to heal the earth. It can be used for traumas, families, healing, government, money systems, schools, so we can live in a world of love. So thank you, Holly. And then also Mr. Mouse wrote, I have known Devi for some time. She has helped with removing and exposing ancient attachments, and the fruit from that removal was such a blessing, removing the amnesia or veils that we all have or had. So thank you, fan club. Thank you. Thank you. Well, that really gives people an idea of the opportunity, and that it doesn't disorient. That's what I think people are afraid of. A lot of the plant medicine work and a lot of the shamanic work, people are afraid of being disoriented afterwards. Like I knew myself, well, and the near death people, I knew myself before.
Yeah.
I saw this experience, and then how do I
reconcile it?
Well, I found I think it's hard to express when you get to that experience of source. It's a feeling. It isn't necessarily a way. You're incredibly talented at expressing, but I haven't been. That's why I've spent so much time with the near death people to try to capture the words to explain what I still experience every day. I still bring it up every day.
What I'm being shown, right, is a map. And let's just take one example of what you're actually describing here, which is the principle of the fear of releasing control.
Right.
Because there's not enough trust in the mystery.
Right.
Right. And that's when people are really hardwired into their cognition, their mental way of structuring their own human personality. It takes tremendous courage to be willing to surrender control to your soul.
Perfect.
The deepest aspect of bravery any of us will exercise is I will, to will, thy will, divine will, as it is at source, so it is on earth. That is humility before our transcendent consciousness, which is a choice point from the immanent. And that's how you get biological ascension. I will, to will, thy will, divine will. Basically, it's this realization of I am only a facet of the fractal of my soul's consciousness. I can't possibly see every opportunity available to me in this given moment, right? From the mouse's perspective. So giving up control just means that you're giving up being a mouse. Wouldn't you like to be the eagle and have, your soul's omnidimensional perspective? And so that's a decision. The divine masculine, the divine feminine will give up the mouse position. I mean, like the critter, right? It could be a groundhog or, whatever it is, surface dweller, and move up into the bird tribes, the owl, right? Or the condor, so that you can look at your life through heaven's eyes.
Perfect. And get to create at that level too. That's why you love Sharon Rose and me too, is that, oh my God, she's just amazing. Okay. Yeah. So I want to do a couple of things here. We've got Stephen Hodges says, I've worked with Devi for 2 years. The circuitry alignment process is amazing. And it's a true integration of who we are for those who are looking to completely upgrade their divine blueprint. And I would invite that we need as many of us to do that as possible right now. And Holly put again, this is grounded embodiment. So that's the other thing, is what I had said about the disorientation. There isn't, in fact, you're more present because your aspects aren't on guard watching out here anymore. They're fully in here. It's amazing. So, okay. So I would love, because we have about 5 more minutes, to bring up the Beyond Being Human ad for your class. Is that okay?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So let's see, share screen. Chrome tab.
So for those of you that don't know, of course, Kathy and I are together as flight crew mates in the Beyond Being Human, right, cooperative.
Yes. And you have a wonderful adventure that you're offering for people to start working on this process. And it's a class that you've created. So will you talk a little bit about it for us?
Yes. We have established a legitimate rite of passage. The replay from October 29th is available, so people can, jump on in and catch that replay. We're meeting again on Saturday, November 5th. There was an educational process of bringing back all of these ancient references, particularly through the indigenous cultures, of being able to call upon our star ancestries for assistance in our human challenges. It's called expanded support teams. And then we took people through an ancient purification process where they went into the Divine Holy Grace Lake, and any of those aggregates, right, of collective ancestral trauma or debris, stagnation, or wreckage, right, that was stored in their cellular memory. They really got to empty all that, right, clutter, declutterize, free. And then we're having testimonials come in of people having profound realizations of their innermost divinity, coming back to center point. But one of the reasons why we can't stand in that embodied presence and power is that our center, right, got all convoluted with all kinds of, right, schisms. And so once that is emptied out, then that central channel is reestablished. And many people were like, whoa, they found their rod and staff of power inside of their own body to stand in that radiance, right, of the love emanation, which is confidence, which is self-assurance, and which is the resilience of I can meet whatever surfaces in my external environment. I have the solutions because my source connection is so potent. And then what we're entering into this Saturday is never been done before. This is being facilitated by all of what you would call the star grandmothers and grandfather teepees. They're walking us all through a quantum intergalactic parallel family systemic constellations, particularly around the issues of money, sex, and power, and restoring that to the divine, right? Particularly with the birthing of the quantum financial systems, right? A lot of us realize that there's resources that we require to fulfill our highest life's purpose. Right. So whether it's love and relationship, whether it's affluence and wealth, whether it's health and well-being, right? These biggies, power is health, right? Health is priceless. So if you're having health challenges, right, with beloveds, right, you can be the source point of the spirit medicine in your family system. And so infinite miracles are really opening up, and we begin at 11 a.m. November 5th, and people can catch the replays just by registering with Michael at Beyond Being Human. He will walk you into, right, the sanctuary. We've created the temple space, and temple doors will be open all the way energetically really to the 11/11 Stargate this month, 11/11/22, big threshold.
So people, of course, we're airing this after the first class, and they can catch up, correct? They can still sign up. And I did put the link to sign up in the chat. So I will put it also in the information on each description. So people, because this is the time we all came here for.
Oh yeah.
And all hands on deck. Come on, you guys.
Well, you'll be delighted to know that Michael has made what you would call our family page. It's a private page. It has additional bonus materials and resources. It has access to my chapter 19, the tool from that chapter, as well as other presentations, as well as other slideshows. And so it's not just this course, it's this course and additional rites of passage and initiations that we've had. And all of that content is being made available for those who get that they're meant to be a part of this quest. It is a pilgrimage. And so we welcome you to travel with us.
So, and when you're talking about this, I wanted to still highlight the Beyond Being Human site so people could see where we're talking about. Devi and I are both flight crew. And we want to thank Michael Ney for his untiring effort to make this a spectacular adventure for all of us and connect so many of us in so many ways. So any let's see. So we're out of time. I'm sorry to say we'll have to do this again, of course. But thank you so much. This was brilliant. Thank you all, the audience, for joining us. Please share this. I think that there can be no higher work than this cleanup right now.
Well said, Kathy. Thank you for being such an incredible messenger yourself. You're a delight to hang out with.
Oh yeah, well, we'll do this more. This is fun. So thank you, everybody. Please remember how powerful you are and that this is supposed to be a fun experience. Get to the fun. This is a path to the fun. Okay. Thank you. Bless you. Bless you.
Ciao.
Ciao.